Welcome to the Sports Marketing Machine Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Nizer. Today is a very, very special episode. I have the great Chad Collins of Legacy Search. Normally, we talk about sports marketing tips and tactics, helping you grow your fan base and sell more tickets. We're going to take a pause today because we're going to dive into all things recruiting. And the one man that knows so much about recruiting more than most folks in the sports industry is Chad Collins of Legacy Search. Chad, thanks for joining me.
Jeremy, thank you. It's been a while, and I have fond memories of us working together in Sacramento and minor league baseball and having a lot of fun. And some of those old PA songs are still stuck in my head to this day. So again, thank you for having me on, and always great to talk to you.
Yes, sir. Let's talk about your background, Chad. We worked together in the River Cats, minor league baseball, so much fun, just like you said. But River Cats was not your only stop, right?
No, I took I took a different path. I started in college sports at the University of Idaho, go Vandals, in the sports marketing department, and did an internship there at the University of Idaho, and then once I got out of college, I did the winter meetings route in New Orleans of all places. So this was 1997 to age myself, and this was back before you could email your resume over to people. So you either had to fax or mail your resume, or in this case, you had to put your paper resume into a basket.
Oh, they still do the baskets, remember?
You did baskets, yes. Baskets, they each had a little cube or whatever to interview, and you put your basket in, and then you'd go and see if your name was called for an interview. So I had a few interviews and landed a seasonal position with the Boise Hawks. At that time, they were short season single A here in Boise, where I live, and started off as a stadium operations guy, knowing nothing about how to work with my hands and tools and so forth, but loved it. Had a great season in 1998, and then the same organization owned a hockey team that was coming to town called the Idaho Steelheads. Now they are an ECHL team, but that's where I got my start in literally calling out of a phone book and as a ticket account executive and learning how to sell and try to be successful there. So spent 4 great years with the Idaho Steelheads, moved from a ticket account executive all the way up to a director of ticket sales, and had great memories there. Had a lot of fun. We also got to sell, at that time was the World Team Tennis in Idaho sneakers, so got to see Andy Roddick come through and the Bryan brothers in tennis, so it was a ton of fun selling that. And we also sold indoor football, so we had all sorts of things. But the calling to the NBA in Sacramento then took place. I had a friend that moved to Sacramento, and I was from that area, and decided, hey, what's life like in the NBA? So my wife and I went down and worked. I worked for the Sacramento Kings and Sacramento Monarchs for 4 years. Had a great time. The Kings were great. They were really good. They were on a national level, and it's fun to see them climb back into that national level now too. So selling group tickets for the arena, the then Arco Arena. That's hard to say because that was a home for me growing up, as Arco Arena, and it's sad to see it go, but they have a beautiful new Golden One Center that's been there for about 5-6 years now. So did that, and then it was my wife's turn to move us, and we moved to the San Francisco Bay Area for a couple years and got my feet wet with sponsorship sales at Stanford, and did 2 years there at Stanford. Had a great time, and knowing that my wife had a project job in San Francisco, we knew we were going to move back to Sacramento. And then one of my dear friends, and yours as well, Jeremy, Andy Fisk, called me up and said, hey, I have a director of ticket sales role here in Sacramento with the River Cats. Great organization, great team over here. You should come over and lead our inside sales team and then lead our outside sales team if you could, if you're interested. And knowing Andy like I knew Andy, I I jumped on the opportunity. It was a great opportunity for us to come back to Sacramento, and spent 2006 through 2010 in Sacramento, and then that's where you and I met up. I think probably in '08 or '09.
Oh, eight, correct.
Yeah, and it was such a fun time. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, some of my dearest friends are like yourself and working in sports, and it's been such a fun journey. That working for the River Cats was great. We won a couple of rings in 2007, 2008, as an Oakland A's affiliate, and so anyways, I'm going fast through this. I don't want to bore anybody, but once I departed Sacramento, my wife and I had just had two beautiful daughters, and we were looking around, and either in the Sacramento, San Francisco Bay Area, or up in Boise, Idaho, where we currently live. And my wife got an opportunity that we couldn't turn down, and we moved to Boise. And at that point, I thought, I think I'm done with sports. I may not be, we had just come off of a long baseball season, and I thought for sure I think I'm done with sports. But kind of it called me back, and I went back to my former club, the Idaho Steelheads, as a VP of Business Development, selling sponsorships, tickets, full menu, and just having a fun time with that for a couple of years. And then saw an ad on LinkedIn and in recruiting, and I've always been a networker like yourself, Jeremy, and answered an ad on LinkedIn for a company called Prodigy Search back east in New Jersey, and interviewed with a gentleman by the name of Scott Carmichael. And he ended up saying, "Hey, I don't have anything at this time, but if you want to do some freelance work, you can work on a few things here and there. I can't pay you. I can pay you a commission, but just started doing that and learning the business." And he ended up hiring me full time, and spent 2 great years with Scott. Learned the business, and decided, you know what, I think I can do this. I think I'm gonna take a leap of faith, and talked it over with my wife, and then in 2015 started my company, Legacy Search, which what we do is what I do. I'm very boutique. It's myself and from time to time freelance recruiters. We will hire mid to high level executives. Primarily the niche has been sponsorship sales, ticket sales, marketing, analytics. Could be a GM of a minor league hockey or baseball team, and really it's just using those communication skills that and networking skills that I've used all my career, and it's been a blast. I love what I do. I love helping people, even if it's not the right job. It's just talking with them and maybe giving them some career advice or some resume tips, or connecting them with other people in the industry. So as you know, in our industry, it's a big industry, but it's a small industry too. And a lot of people have either worked with each other or gotten to know each other in conferences and so forth. So I do truly love this industry.
Yeah, I think that's the wonderful thing about working in sports is everyone's connected, and you don't realize how small it is. Oh, I know this person because I worked here and they worked here and I worked there and they worked there, and it's such a small, wonderful niche. So building a reputation of just being able to show up and help, and knowing that folks know that you work hard, and having great relationships with folks, it just makes it better and easier for everyone, for sure. So
Yeah, absolutely.
So you've been at it 2015 on the recruiting trail, trying to help teams find great candidates for open roles. COVID happened. Some of the things happened before COVID. Recruiting looked like something different than what it looks like now. How has it changed?
Boy, well, I would say there was a lot of people during COVID that exited the industry, but there were at some of them at no fault to their own. It just that was a really, really tough time. I mean, it was I was receiving calls from candidates going, "Hey, do you know what's going on? I may have to look for another job," and it was a scary time for everybody, including my business, because a lot of my business is with fans in the stands. And so what I've seen, Jeremy, to answer your question, is I've seen teams that have changed their philosophies where not all, but I've seen hybrid roles where candidates are going in 3, maybe 4 times a week and then work from home one day. So that's one thing. 2, I've seen teams increase their salary a little bit as far as the base salaries, especially with their sellers. It used to be the low base salary commission, but now that those base salaries have gone up a little bit. I've that work-life balance has been more important. Like, let's take baseball for example. Maybe not as many games as it used to be, and now that's hard to say because some of the smaller teams that have smaller staffs are usually at games, but some of the bigger teams in Major League Baseball, maybe AAA, maybe some of the AA teams, have more of that work-life balance.
So it's changed that a lot of teams, there is not an expectation to be at every single game for some roles, right? Is that so? Before it used to be, hey, if you're working in sports, you're at every single game. Now it's a little bit different. It sounds like.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely, and it's or like, hey, you don't have. It used to be someone have to stay the whole game. Okay, take off in the 3rd inning, or make sure everything's good and your clients are taken care of. And then if you got to go in the 3rd inning, and then, okay, next day, come in at 10, come in at 11, whatever. We get it. So a little more flexibility. And it's different with every team. But, the Mariners are one of my clients up in Seattle, and they've done a really nice job of that work-life balance and pay structure too. So I will give them a little prop there.
Yeah, good to hear. So you talk to candidates all the time. Some of the things that were important to them pre-COVID are not important as they are now, or what's changed, or really what's important to candidates today?
I think it goes back to that work-life balance is one. Culture. A lot of them want to know what that culture is like, and what I'll tell them is hey, let's, if you know anybody that used to work at that organization, maybe call them. And I think culture, our industry is pretty small. Like, hey, how was it like to work for Chad back at the River Cats? How is it, to work with Jeremy? So I think trying to do that homework, but you never really know until you're in it. You might not know until the first 6 months, like, oh, this is great, or oh, this is maybe not what I thought. So I think culture is very important to candidates. I think that work-life balance is important, and having somewhat of a salary, because as you start off, it's fairly low pay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember my first year working in sports. It was $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year in 2001, and then you, I think it was 5% commission, 10% commission. That was it. So
It's funny you say that, because I tell people all the time. I go, listen, when I got hired for the Hawks, it was seasonal, and there was no guarantee after the season, and I was making $800 a month, and I was living off a buddy's couch here in Boise. Giving him like $100 a month in rent, because that's all I could really afford. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, and living off dollar Whoppers from Burger King. So at that time, but,
frozen pizzas for us, but same thing.
Yeah, and I was like, dude, I can get a pretzel and a hot dog at the game for free. Okay, sign me up. Yep.
Yeah, we became good friends with the concessions guy.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, exactly. Good stuff. Yeah. So as the teams start to look at it, it's getting close to the end of the season, specifically baseball. After August, it's the end of the year, and they start to look at and assess what they have, and you're going to see some movement. Some people leave sports in general, or find different roles and what have you. And teams are going to start to take a look at their job postings, their job descriptions. There is a difference between job post and job description, but that's a topic for another question. But if teams are looking at their job posting, how should they craft it or rewrite what they have so that they're hitting on the things that are important to candidates?
Yeah, I think that goes back to culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anything that they can, HR and the hiring manager can talk about where, it's a fun place to, because sports is fun, right? It's supposed to
Mm-hmm.
be fun, and it's, sometimes it becomes stressful because you're trying to hit numbers, at least as a sales guy or gal. And anything that they can stress as fun is like, hey, we take 2 weeks off during the holidays. We celebrate these holidays. We do fun outings, company softball, what anything that they can make that shows it's a fun culture. I think helps.
Mm-hmm.
I also, and we discussed this earlier, is I also think that being as transparent as you can with these job descriptions and talk about some of the benefits, talk about what that salary range might look like. You don't have to go into commission, but if someone knows that there's commission bonus and whether it's discretionary bonus and 401k, I think that helps because candidates are looking at all that stuff and they want to ask that question, but they don't,
Mm-hmm.
because they also understand that first interview is, hey, they have to like me and I have to like them first. So that might not be until like the second or third interview for them. So if you can put that out front, that in my opinion, I think that helps. And that's one cool thing about working with a recruiter is I'll kind of know all that stuff too
Mm-hmm.
because I've vetted the hiring manager and I've vetted the team, and just to know a little bit more, and I may know like what that hiring manager can go to as far as salary, if there's wiggle room or not, and I'll let the candidate know like, hey, there might be a little bit of wiggle room in the salary, but if you're in sales, you also have to ask for that too.
Mm-hmm.
If someone just offers you, hey, here's 60 grand plus commission, and you're just like, okay, I'll take it, but always go back. Always, it's the worst they can say is no, or maybe they meet you in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah,
um,
you ask for five, and they say, okay, we'll do 2,500, something like that.
right,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
because they want to know, okay, is this person going to be good in sales
Mm-hmm.
too? Is Jeremy or Chad going to ask for that sale, or that extra dollar?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's important. You brought up transparency because what you're going to do is you're going to get the guys who are just looking for a high salary range. If you don't have the money, you're just not going to be able, they're not going to apply. So you're actually going to get a lot of those folks off of it. So you're probably going to get better candidates right out of the gate. So
yeah,
it's that's wonderful, and including the benefits. A lot of teams offer the 401k and the health benefits and what have you, but it's important to include it because from the candidate's perspective, well, do they even offer it? When you're looking at two different job postings or job descriptions, you're like, hey, I like this role, working in California looks great, or I like this role, working in Idaho is marvelous. One team has benefits, the other one doesn't. You start to question, well, do they even offer it? So
yeah,
just having all that stuff ahead of time is wonderful. So you brought up a really good point there, and then the culture piece is so important that I think a lot of teams forget. And a lot of teams wrote their job description where it was really all about them instead of the opportunity for the employee. So
yeah.
you're dead on about those two topics there, culture and transparency, as the teams rewrite or kind of update their job postings. So.
Yeah. Another thing I'd add too to that is a lot of candidates that I talk to, Jeremy, are a little concerned. Maybe some of the younger candidates, like let's say I'm moving them from point A to point B. Let's just use this for an example, Sacramento to Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
In the back of their mind, they're a little concerned, like, okay, do I qualify for any relocation?
Mm-hmm.
Is relo involved? Is that going to be part of because I don't know if I can spend. I don't know if I have 5 or 10 grand to spend to move my family from Sacramento to Seattle. Will there be any help there? So
Mm-hmm.
I also think, man, if they could put like some sort of reimbursement help on that job description, Now I also understand that could open the door. Well, I just moved across the river from, this place to that place. Are you still going to give me the relocation? So I also understand that too. So I guess it goes both ways.
Yeah, and I guess if they put something, hey, if you're moving from 100 miles or more, there's a relocation
Yeah, that's a good
bonus,
point.
something like that. It just
Yep.
being as clear and concise as possible. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
exactly.
Joining Chad Collins from Legacy Search, and we're talking all things recruiting. What are some things teams should think about before they make their post on Teamwork Online or some of these different places to post these job opportunities that they have? What are some things that they should be thinking about? Is there some things they should be doing to their website? What are some things that, in some cases, they miss before they post the job?
You might hate teams might hate to hear this, but look at what you have first. Look at your current staff. Sometimes staff members get overlooked internally, and they, like, oh, teams are looking, well, let's find someone from outside of our organization, somebody that may have some fresh ideas. Where I always say, man, look at internally first. Look at what you have, and there may be somebody in there that wow, he's been doing a knock-up job. Why not promote him to, or her to, this role instead of looking from the outside? So I always hope that teams promote from within first, and then, okay, let's start looking outside. So I think just really freshening up job descriptions is helpful. I think you and I discussed this, working with the HR team, working with the hiring manager, and bringing in the marketing too. I mean, how can we spice this up a little bit so it's not the same? Here's what it is. Here's the job description. But first and foremost, looking within the organization, then collaboratively, going through this job description, going through or everything you need to do to get this out. But a lot of times, especially with the teams with sales, they, time is money, so they're just trying to quickly get this out, and hope that they get candidates right away. And then that's where I come in. If they're having a tough time getting candidates, they'll, these teams or leagues or agencies will reach out and say, hey, Chad, could you help us out? This is what you do day in and day out. Maybe you have some candidates that are here in our area or would want to come work for us. So.
Yeah, it says a lot about your integrity, number one, as a business owner, and how you understand their perspective. And understanding their perspective is a lot of institutional knowledge walks out the door. If you try to find someone from the outside and you've overlooked someone from the inside, that also sends a message a little bit sometimes, depending on the role and depending on situations. But that says a lot about your integrity as how you run your operation. Like, hey, have you thought about someone inside, rather than just saying, yep, I'm going to help you find it, trying to get the deal done. So that tells me a lot about you, Chad.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and most of the business that I get, honestly, are just people that I've either worked with, like yourself, or let's use Kevin Hilton for an example, who is at the 49ers. He's hired me a few times, and to find a few spots, and I think it's just the trust. And I also think that that a lot of people in the industry know that, like you or I, have sold tickets, have sold sponsorships, have been hiring managers for the team side. So I do think that that's beneficial, because right away I can call a candidate and discuss my background, because they'll see me on LinkedIn and say, oh, wow, you work for the Sacramento Kings or the Sacramento River Cats, and what did you do there? And I said, listen, I hammered out the phone calls and emails and meetings and had quotas and hired young account executives. So I do think that helps with what I do in my business. So
Yeah, absolutely. Same thing on my side too. When I talk to sports teams about their marketing and being able to help them, they ask a little bit. Well, tell me about your background, and just like you, hey, 20 plus years in professional sports. All of a sudden, there's a trust factor, and then some credibility, and so 100% makes sense for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And they like to share stories too. They like to, oh, geez, you'll never believe this when, working for the River Cats or the Kings, or this happened. And so it is fun to share stories, and it is fun to talk different markets. That's what I love, is talking about the different markets. Maybe I'm talking to somebody in Minnesota, and they're talking about their Twins season or their Timberwolves season, and they're, what's been working for them as far as group tickets or sponsorships and stuff. So it's a ton of fun. I love it.
Maybe we'll have you on for another call to talk about some of those tricks and tips that you're hearing from some of these other teams to help teams sell more tickets and get more groups to their games, because you're hearing it a lot from the major league teams as well. So that's always good. Great insight for sure. So
yeah.
So
sure.
when you're talking to a candidate, so let's just pretend a team hired you and they say, okay, Chad, go out and find me a VP of sponsorship. I need someone like this. What are some things that you look for when you're talking to a candidate or even a ticket sales rep, whichever one makes the most sense here in this situation? But what do you look for in a candidate as you're having conversations with them?
Yeah, one of my favorite questions to use, let's use the VP of sponsorships, is what's the most creative deal you've put together? And how did that, and step me through that. Take me from start to finish. What was creative about it? Why did it work for the client or what was it that was really cool about it? And I always love to hear the creativity side of things, and that's the part of the Jeremy Nizer, the marketing side of things. So I always want to hear about that. And one of my questions too is I really have to dig and I have to find out, like, what kind of person are they too? Like, so for example, I'll say, hey, Jeremy, we work a lot of nights, weekends, holidays. Who's Jeremy Nizer the person? Tell me about yourself. Tell me more. We can talk all the business you want, but I also want to know who you are. So if it's a VP of partnerships too, I also have to see what kind of numbers they've hit in the past, what kind of deals they've put together, and then more importantly, like, hey, what type of manager are you? What type of, if you have I'll put them in a situation like, if you have a team of 5 sellers and 3 activation folks, what's your first, this is the classic, what's your first 30, 60, 90 look like? And then, what type of manager are you? So I'll always kind of, sometimes I'll say, well, I'm not a micromanager. Well, okay. And then I'll have to do some backup on that. I'll have to say, hey, what was, Jeremy, you worked with so-and-so. Hey, what was it like to work with him? Good guy, good gal.
So you're doing even reference checks for teams, it sounds like.
Quiet reference checks.
Reference checks.
Yes. Because you're going to give me your references. I know all 3 are going to be great.
Sure.
So I have to dig a little bit deeper and just go, okay, hey, Jeremy, you worked with so-and-so. What's this person like?
Sure.
So, and if Jeremy is someone I trust, says, oh, the guy's awesome. He's a great guy, great gal, then okay, cool. But I'm also going to call someone else too, just to make sure.
Yeah.
So.
It's typically the references are 3 or 5 people that people know that they're going to give glowing remarks about. So there's no doubt about that. But doing that extra level of digging makes it even more beneficial for teams, for sure.
Yeah. But I will ask for, 3 references. I need one that was a peer, one that if you're comfortable giving me your old manager, and then someone else. If for some reason, if they've got it, like, let's say they're a 10-year veteran in our industry and they don't give me any hiring manager, any one of their old managers,
that's
could
a
be
red
a
flag.
red flag.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, all good stuff. So if teams wanted to hire you, Chad, what's the best way? Should they reach out to you? I know you're a one-man shop just like I am, but you're helping teams in your network and you're doing as much. How should teams get a hold of you if they're interested in just having a conversation about recruiting and maybe they're going to have a couple open roles, just not quite sure what they're going to do? How should they get in touch with you?
Yeah, I think it's, both parties, reaching out, obviously. My email is chad@legacysportsearch.com. My website is legacysportsearch.com. But it's more, I have an in-depth interview with the hiring manager. I want to know what they're looking for, what where did the last person go? We usually have set up a half-hour call, and I want them to know what I do, how I do it, what my first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks look like in the search process, what the fees look like. But I always assure them, hey, listen, I'm going to provide you 3 to 5 candidates. I can't guarantee they're going to move or not, but they're going to be interested. They're going to be vetted, probably interested. I want to make sure that they have done this role or that role, and also the salary fits. So that's important. That's an important piece. So it becomes a puzzle within the recruiting business. And I've had crazy stories where a candidate will tell me everything I want to know, and then it starts heating up, and they say I'm out. So you can only control the controllables in recruiting.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. There's probably numerous stories you could share just about that recruiting process and the things that you've heard and seen and did. You're laughing. You just look back and go, that was wild for sure. So, yep, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
it is. It's crazy.
well, Chad, I appreciate you joining me on the Sports Marketing Machine podcast. If any teams are interested, feel free to reach out at Chad at legacysportssearch.com. Is that right?
You got it. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Perfect. Sounds
Absolutely.
good. Well, I appreciate your time, man, and looking forward to keeping in touch.
Absolutely, Jeremy. Thanks for having me on. Always great to see you and talk to you. So.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right.